Excellences, Mesdames et Messieurs les chefs d'État, de gouvernement et de délégation, distingués invités. Je voudrais d'abord vous souhaiter la bienvenue au siège de l'Union africaine dans cette très belle salle qui porte bien son nom, la salle Nelson Mandela. Ces grands militants de... Je profite également de l'occasion pour avoir une pensée pieuse à la famille, au gouvernement et au peuple de Namibie, à toute l'Afrique, avec la disparition d'un autre grand combattant, un grand militant, le président Hage Geingob. Que la terre de ses ancêtres lui soit légère. Je voudrais également saluer la présence parmi nous d'un grand militant, le président Lula da Silva. Qu'il soit la bienvenue en Afrique et au siège de l'Union africaine. Excellence Azali Assoumani, président de l'Union de Comores et président en exercice de l'Union africaine, Excellences, Mesdames et Messieurs les chefs d'État, de gouvernement et de délégation, Excellences, Monsieur le Président Lula da Silva, président du Brésil, Monsieur le Premier ministre de la Palestine, Monsieur le Secrétaire général de la Ligue arabe, Mesdames et Messieurs les ministres,
Arab League, honorable ministers, commissioners, distinguished representatives of international organizations, invited guests, all protocols observed. Just a few weeks after the celebration of the New Year 2024, we are still within the reasonable.
Aussi voudrais-je saisir l'opportunité de la présente session de votre conférence pour former à l'endroit de chacun et chacune de vous, ainsi qu'à vos gouvernements et à vos peuples, mes meilleurs vœux de paix, de stabilité et de prospérité. Monsieur le Président en exercice, Excellences, Mesdames et Messieurs les chefs d'État et de gouvernement, j'ai déjà passé 7 bonnes années à la tête de la Commission de l'Union africaine, années au cours desquelles j'ai bénéficié de votre sagesse et de votre expérience, notamment celle des
that I have accumulated and the lesson learned from the life of our organization allow me to begin the formulation of some thoughts, which I will conclude at the beginning of next year when I will be bidding farewell, inshallah. Excellency, Mr. Chairman, Excellency, Heads of State and main challenges have not diminished in importance. Peace, political and
l'intégration, la pauvreté, la marginalisation des femmes et des jeunes dans les processus de développement et de leadership dans nos systèmes politiques et sociaux demeurent nos principales sources de préoccupation. La complexification inouïe du monde est loin d'arranger les choses. La conflictualité, la violence et le déclin des grands principes ont pris, hélas, le dessus sur l'humilité, la paix et la noblesse des valeurs fondatrices de la civilisation humaine. Non seulement les inégalités sociales se sont creusées, les injustices se sont multipliées, mais l'hégémonie et les velléités absurdes de régler nos divergences par la force brutale et vaine
by brutal and vain force prevail publicly before the eyes of all. The most flagrant case is that of Gaza in Palestine, literally razed to the ground. People who have been exterminated in the physical in presence of its inhabitants, trampled underfoot. The international law, the international humanitarian law, human rights morality that is law and in general are ignored, trampled underfoot, flouted. Honorable Minister, Prime Minister, my dear brother of Palestine, rest assured that we strongly condemn the unprecedented attacks that we have witnessed in the history of mankind, but we want to reassure you of our solidarity with the people of Palestine. We will make sure that justice, we continue to fight for justice and also for the prosperity of the people, not tomorrow, but today, that they need these rights so that they can live in full liberty and freedom in their state, in peace and security. That is for the people together with the peoples in the region. In this regard, I would like to express my satisfaction with the dual judicial and ethical reaction of South Africa. Its referral to the International Court of Justice is based on the unwavering commitment Africa and to such values. It recalls with strong resonance the words of Nelson Mandela when he said, "We know very well that our freedom is incomplete without that of Palestine." The decision that the International Court of Justice has just taken, in fact, extends the relevance of the approach and resounds as a victory, not only for South Africa, not only for Africa, but also for all the countries which have shown their unwavering support for the just cause of the Palestinian people. Excellency, Mr. Chairman, Excellencies, heads of state and government, war continues to rage in Europe between Russians and Ukrainians. The scope of its devastation of human lives and property continues to expand to the great detriment of the peoples of the world. Here in Africa, terrorism is destroying some of our states by reversing the priorities through the increase in exorbitant military spending at the expense of vital social sectors, while opening the way to misleading populist speeches. Unconstitutional changes of government have multiplied in total defiance of the entire political and legal order that had founded our organization. Never since the establishment of the African Union has such a number of transitions following unconstitutional change of government has been seen in Africa. Our failure to counter such a phenomenon is obvious. Instead of being joyful modes of peaceful transfer or maintenance of power, elections have become, through the extent of their irregularities, factors for deepening crisis. It is, therefore, legitimate to wonder what has become of our African peace and our security architecture, APSA, and its twin sister, the African Governance Architecture, AGA, the mere mention of whose acronyms galvanized us and made us shudder with pride. Are we being deceived by designing them according to their current physiognomy? Did we err by blind mimicry in designing them the way we did? How can we escape this nagging question? Libya remains divided and exposed to all kinds of external interference to satisfy their insatiable appetites. We recognize the efforts that are being made for national reconciliation through the high-level committee of the African Union that was established under the leadership of President Sassou Nguesso and with the active support of the Libyan authorities, and whose chairman of the Presidential Council is here, and I thank them. The Sudan, bruised, torn, deeply trampled by its elites in sinking into chaos, and the calls of its people for peace and justice remain ignored. How, therefore, can we not vigorously condemn the stubbornness of the authors of this senseless adventure, and urgently promote a consensual political solution which IGAD and the AU, supported by the entire segments of the international community, had called for as soon as the war broke out? The Horn of Africa continues to generate the most worrying trends for all peace and justice-loving people. The imperative need for the full respect of the sovereignty, integrity, security, and fundamental interests of all the countries in the region have never been so more crucial than it is today. The Great Lakes region is multiplying the signs of worsening of its eternal crisis fueled by the unresolved issues in the east of the Democratic Republic of the Congo, and Africa cannot remain arms folded and give up and not work to promote genuine peace in the region. The Sahel is an extreme source of concern, with a vacuum that has dangerously established there since the withdrawal of the United Nations mission, the denunciation of the Algiers Agreement, and the withdrawal of Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger from ECOWAS. The situation in Senegal, a model country in terms of democracy, worries us to the greatest extent. Our fervent hope is that it quickly finds the path of wisdom to resolve this institutional crisis in accordance with the principles of the rule of law and the fundamental interests of its great people. In this context, I welcome the position of the Senegalese government to take into high consideration the decision of the Constitutional Council of the country, and wish every success to the consultations planned by the government to decide in a consensual spirit the best ways for the organization of inclusive, free and fair and transparent elections as quickly as possible. Excellency Mr. Chairman, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, Excellencies, heads of state and government, ladies and gentlemen. However, beyond this bleak picture and its litany of difficulties, we made some achievements, and the various reports on our agenda will highlight these. Institutional reform is progressing successfully despite the shortcomings that we are called upon to identify and address in lucidity. It is for me an opportunity to thank President Paul Kagame, who, with the rigor that we know of, has assured and President Ruto, who has now been appointed to succeed him, for all the support in order to conclude this useful venture which is indispensable for our organization. Integration has progressed, and the African Continental Free Trade Area is gradually getting underway, even if its pace seems to be slow compared to our forecasts and expectations. Bold recovery measures must be taken with determination. The Peace Fund is taking shape. Its operationalization is being done at a satisfactory pace. More sacrifices from our member states and concrete contributions from our partners are necessary. New organs have emerged in response to our needs in the field of health in particular. Their prompt operationalization remains one of our major challenges, since it refers to the recurring phenomenon of decisions that are adopted and they are not implemented, which becomes a real threat to our collective credibility. The African common positions have been strengthened on the issues of climate, reform of global governance, financing of African peacekeeping missions, on which has been obtained at the United Nations Security Council. This is the moment to express my grateful thanks to all the members of the Council who contributed to this. I would like to make a special mention here of the enthusiastic support that my dear brother, friend, Antonio Guterres, the Secretary General of the United Nations, absent for reasons beyond his control, and creates a real void on this podium, have given us throughout these long years of struggle is a support to obtain this result. The accession of the African Union to the G20 Forum urges us to succeed by effectively making our irreplaceable contribution to the solution of global challenges while we intensify our advocacy in favor of the continental priorities. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, there is obviously a vast field where we have sown seeds and harvested quite well. There is therefore no point in self-flagellation. There is also no point in turning a blind eye to the paralyzing autism through denial of our shortcomings and failings. The final purpose of my remarks today is to take the risk of in looking into some of these shortcomings and institutional limits that continue to challenge us. The first shortcoming that the institutional reform of our union has left unaddressed concern the powers of the Commission and particularly its chairperson. I feel free and without any embarrassment to point this out because since I'm almost at the end of my term and the solution to the question will no longer concern me personally. Although the chairperson of the Commission is recognized in the text as the legal representative and the chief accounting officer of the organization, he is paradoxically deprived of sufficient margins of maneuver to act urgently on strategic issues. Another phenomenon deserves your close attention. The frantic tendency to make decisions without real political will to implement them has grown to such an extent that it has become devastating to our individual and collective credibility. As an illustration, over the last 3 years, 2021, 2022, and 2023, 93% of the decisions have not been implemented. This almost systematic defiance of the decisions of your summit is perceptible at the level of member states as well as the level of the regional economic communities. It has become commonplace to see them overstep and even blithely violate the decisions of the continental bodies. In front of them, for example, the recurring decisions of the PSC, ignored and violated, have become unimportant, without any impact. Subject to all unfortunate interpretation, subsidiary has been frankly overused. By a strange semantic shift, subsidiarity has come to sound like substitution. This results in a legitimate questioning of the relevance of the practice of crowning our meetings with decisions. Should we let ourselves be carried away by the force of routine, business as usual, or courageously pull ourselves together? We have no other recourse but you, Excellencies. Our eyes are turned towards you, and our expectations also. A major constraint has continued to interfere in our general action. It is what we have faced in the operationalization of our international partnership. Africa must certainly count on its own intellectual strength, the genius of its peoples, and its immense potential of extreme wealth. However, it cannot evolve in isolation at a time when globalization is in full swing. Africa can only develop in a solid and fruitful relationship with its international environment. Consequently, the issue of partnership arises acutely. Bold, thinking and courageous decisions must be made. Our credibility and the good international positioning of our organization are at stake. Another issue concerns inter-African solidarity. During the times of national liberation and the fight against the execrable apartheid regime, African solidarity, carried by the powerful feeling of Pan-Africanism, it was at its peak. It united us in a liberating historical current. Today, My experience during my 2 terms has enabled me on a daily basis to note a real decline in the beautiful spirit of African solidarity and Pan-Africanism, the soul of our Renaissance. I ask myself and to your Excellencies the question of how to reconnect with this heroic and glorious time. How should we stop watching terrorism ravage some of our countries without doing anything? How can we accept just watching African countries destroyed, entire regions engulfed by the tremors and tsunamis without doing anything significant? How can we rediscover our African humanity, the basis of our identity and our common destiny? Excellency, Mr. Chairman, Excellencies, Heads of State and Government, we are now strongly challenged by the urgency of clear positions on this set of issues at the heart of the emergence of our organization and our continent. The strengthening of our unity and the intensification of our struggles require a new awakening, a true renaissance of nationalism and Pan-Africanism. May I, in support of my plea, draw from the heritage of our founding fathers. And I take the liberty of quoting in favor of the theme of the year on education, a renowned, illustrious teacher, a renowned educator whom we are preparing to honor here, right here at our headquarters with a statue of his historical dimension.
I quote, "The role of African nationalism is different, or should be different, from the nationalism of the past. That the African national state is an instrument for the unification of Africa and not for dividing Africa. That African nationalism is meaningless, is dangerous, is anachronic if it is not at the same time Pan-Africanist." Que le bel esprit.
May the beautiful spirit of Mwalimu continue to inspire us. I thank you for your kind attention.
Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, I have now the honor and pleasure to invite His Excellency Dr. Abiy Ahmed, Prime Minister of the Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia, to deliver his statement. Thank you.
Excellency President Azali Assoumani, outgoing Chairperson of the African Union, Excellency Lula da Silva, President of Brazil, Excellency Moussa Faki Mohamed, Chairperson of the African Union Commission, Excellencies, Heads of State and Government, distinguished ministers, ambassadors, invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Ethiopia. It is an honor to be with you today. Since we last met, the world has witnessed profound transformations shaped by geopolitical competition, economic challenge, climate change, and technological advancements. While we celebrate the African Union permanent membership in the G20 and the opportunity it gives the continent to be heard on global issues, there are still important questions we need to address. What role do we, Africans, want to play in this evolving global power structure? And how do we become key players in the distribution of economic power. In an attempt to answer these questions, allow me to take a step back in history. Africa is where modern humans arose. Our ancient kingdoms and empires were home to many significant inventions and innovations, particularly in agricultural techniques, in the use of medicinal plants, and in the construction of impressive architectural structures, all being a testament to Africa's important contributions to the world civilizations in critical areas such as science, technology, and education. However, our continental path towards greater achievements and progress was disrupted by colonialism. The strategic approach of the colonial powers was centered around dismantling the core essence of our nations, undermining our knowledge, our spiritual and cultural heritage, replacing our ancient education systems with Western-style education that was introduced as being superior. Even though Ethiopia dealt colonialism a heavy blow at the Battle of Adwa, attempts to undermine Ethiopia's unity by exploiting our diversity to perpetuate ongoing conflicts continued throughout the centuries. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, uncovering these deep historic facts and bringing them to light is necessary to move forward for us as Africans for greater self-determination and dignity. Our land is rich. We are blessed with favorable weather, arable land, water, forests, natural resources, and a large youth population who embody the great potential of our continent. We should not be seeking for aid. In order to grow and ensure sustainable development, education is key. In the last 5 years, Ethiopia has made significant progress towards universal access to education. We have built over 30,000 kindergartens and primary schools. We are heavily investing in secondary schools and TVETs to ensure quality and skills development as well as meet labor market needs. Today, new technologies and innovative learning models can help our continent leapfrog into the future. Technology has taken learning beyond the classroom. Artificial intelligence is delivering personalized learning tailored to children's needs by breaking down cultural and language barriers. Such advancements will allow our youth to unleash their entrepreneurial spirit, problem-solving skills, and determination to overcome challenges on Africa's development path. But we all know that one of the major factors affecting education systems are investments and financial constraints. Our financing needs are growing due to climate change and the cost of living crisis, among others. Debt is a burden. Inequalities in the international financial architecture makes access to finance inadequate and expensive. The world needs to internalize the fact that the population projection of Africa in 2015 is 2.5 billion people, making us the most populous continent in the world. Africa's rise should be important to the entire world. We need to grow. We need to build infrastructure, assure food security, strengthen our health and education systems, and create jobs. All of this requires long-term financing. While I renew my call to all major financial agencies to consider the realities of today's world, and particularly for middle and low-income countries, allow me to draw your attention on some of the opportunities our continent has for the Africa we all want. First comes Africa's thriving digital economy. Majority on the continent have phones, and mobile data is rapidly growing. We are starting to produce large data sets that the AI system require to allow us to learn, make prediction, inform our policies, and act. Having a robust Pan-African data governance strategy aligned with the principles of Agenda 2063 will boost the continent's competitiveness, ensure productive cross-border data flow, and protect individual rights. In addition, increasing infrastructure connectivity between our countries by building roads, airports, ports, rail networks, pipelines, and communication networks will link communities, increase trade, and enable economic integration. Furthermore, I would like to touch upon the need to secure peace and stability, which are, of course, the necessary foundation for economic and social development. Ethiopia firmly believes that regional and continental integration is essential to diversify our economies, ensure peaceful coexistence among us neighbors, and work together for our common growth. Africa needs strong regional and continental platforms where national development challenges from a geographical, logistics, and security perspective are taken into consideration. All of us here gathered today need to embrace the complexity of the world we live in and have critical debates to bring about creative but yet pragmatic solutions that will lead us to the transformation for Africa to prosper. I conclude by thanking our outgoing chairperson, President Azali Assoumani, for his leadership and for representing our organization on the global stage. Allow me to also warmly congratulate our new chairperson, wishing him success during his tenure. I wish you all a fruitful summit, a fruitful stay in your second home, and God bless Ethiopia, God bless Africa. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Excellency, for your statement. ويشرفني أن أقدم لكم معالي أحمد أبو الغيط الأمين العام لجامعة الدول العربية لتقديم كلمته.
فخامة الرئيس عثمان غزالي رئيس جمهورية جزر القمر، أصحاب الفخامة ورؤساء الدول والحكومات، معالي السيد موسى فقي
State and Government, Excellency Musa Faki Mohamed, Chairperson of the AU Commission, Ladies and gentlemen, I wish to greet President Osman Azali for the successful chairmanship of the African Union. Allow me also to congratulate Mohammed Wild Ghazwani for the chairmanship of the Union. We remain confident that his personal leadership will revamp the level of partnership to support the priorities of our countries and in support of our common causes. Arab-African partnership is one of the oldest partnerships where we have deep ties between Africa and the Arab world. We look forward to promoting our common efforts to promote this partnership with the new horizons to benefit from the natural resources in the Arab and African regions. The holding of the Afro-Arab Summit represents a common interest and a crowning of cooperation between the two regions. The League of Arab States is continuously and relentlessly working with all the parties to organize this summit. We aim at consolidating our efforts to ensure the success of cooperation between the Arab and African regions. We will continue with the efforts to establish the fund to deal with natural disasters, as well as the Afro-Arab Center on Migration, in addition to other frameworks for institutional cooperation. Ladies and gentlemen, the Gaza Strip is still witnessing a barbaric, unprecedented
viole le droit international humanitaire. Des dizaines de milliers
of have lost their lives, mainly children and women. The occupation that has no legal status is still continuing massacres and is implementing the plans of the extreme right to the land from its people and to continue with the genocide. This war shows the failure of the world to stop this world in spite of international opinion and the rejection of this war. This war, on the other hand, has awakened the voice of the South. It has united the voice of the countries that are supporting the Palestinian right and which also reject colonization. That have supported the values of justice, legality, and human rights. These positions need to continue and to become deeper, to end the colonization and to establish the Palestinian states on the borders of 1967. We believe that this is the only rational solution to end the conflict. This solution was adopted by the League of Arab States through its plan agreed upon in Beirut in 2002. We should take this opportunity to hail the efforts made by South Africa and the effort they still continue to do to bring the colonization to account and expose its crimes, to end the massacre by instituting a case against Israel in the International Court of Justice. The war is still continuing in Sudan between the warring factions. This war is stepping up and the League of Arab States has not stopped calling in all its decisions and meetings calling for the end of armed conflict, to stop the bloodshed and to ensure the protection of the people of Sudan, and also in support for the unity of the country. We call for working with the African Union and the United Nations to achieve our goals on the basis of the following principles. First of all, maintaining the institutions of the Sudanese state and stopping their collapse. Secondly, support the efforts to have a comprehensive and sustainable ceasefire, including the efforts of the Jeddah Forum, in addition to other efforts to stop the bloodshed. Thirdly, starting a comprehensive political process that should lead to the establishment of a transitional government with specific missions. Dear guests, the sovereignty of Somalia is one of the main priorities of the League of Arab States. The League is satisfied with the achievements made by Somalia at different levels. But the major challenge faced by the Somali state at the moment is the attempts of separation from its regions. The League is continuing its efforts to support Somalia and to defend its sovereign rights in cooperation with the federal government of Somalia, the United Nations, the African Union, and the relevant regional organizations to avoid any threat to its territories. As regards the situation in Libya, and which represents a common priority for us, as partners in the Arab and African regions, we call upon the various Libyan parties to find a political solution and to go beyond the hurdles that impede the establishment, the organization of elections, ending with political stability that can guarantee the unity of the country and ends the foreign military presence, in addition to promoting dialogue with neighboring countries. The League of Arab States affirms the need to work closely with the African Union in order to reach these objectives. The challenges faced are tremendous and continuing, but our joint work will find the way to meet these challenges and build the future. I do thank you very much for your attention.
كل الشكر والتقدير.
I extend my thanks to Dr. Ahmed Abul Ghit, the Secretary General of the League of Arab States. Now I am honored and pleased to present to you Dr. Mohammed Ibrahim Shtia, the Prime Minister of the State of Palestine, to give his address.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. أصحاب الفخامة والمعالي رؤساء الوفود.
Heads of delegation, Excellency President of the African Union, Ousmane Ozali, the President of the Union of the Comoros, dear friends and brother Musa Fakir Mohammed, the Chairperson of the African Union Commission, dear brother, Excellency Abiy Ahmed, Prime Minister of the Federal Republic of Ethiopia, dear brother, Excellency Ahmed Abul Ghit, Secretary General of the League of Arab States, dear friend, President Lula da Silva, President of Brazil. My greetings from Palestine to Africa, from the people of Palestine, from the children who sleep hungry every night, from women who lost their husbands, from women who have been unjustly killed, from children who died before they could have the opportunity of life, and others who have become orphans after killing all their family members. From 28,000 martyrs, most of them are children and women. from the pains of 20,000 injured people who are still struggling for their lives, from hundreds of people whose homes have been destroyed and whose corpses are still under the rubble, from Gaza, from its cold winter, from the millions of people who are deprived of energy, food, shelter, and medication, and from people whom the world could not assist, from hundreds of Palestinians in Israeli prisoners who are facing repression, the lack of sleep, torture, and maltreatment and repression. Greetings to Africa from the land of Palestine, which is facing a colonial settlement-based project followed by the terrorism of settlers. Greetings to Africa from our sacred land, from the Holy Mosque, from the churches which are desecrated by the Israeli army. We are defending, as we defend our land, our people, as you struggled against colonization in your own countries. Today, Israel is killing in revenge. It's killing for the sake of killing. After 130 days of aggression, it destroyed more than 281,000 homes. Israel wants to continue the war till the end of this year. This is accompanied by destruction so that its prime minister remains a prime minister. We should not allow him to do this. He does not listen to anyone. He does not listen to America, its historical ally, and nor from Europe or anyone. Therefore, we must talk with Israel on the basis of action, not simply on the basis of political declarations and positions. We must have a plan to put the colonial project under sanctions. The United States and some European countries have put a number of settlers under its lists of terrorists. This is important. But what is even more important is to boycott the products of Israeli settlements and to boycott the settlements and the settlers and to impose sanctions on this state that violates international law and international humanitarian law, and it is committing crimes against the Palestinian people. Greetings to Africa and to South Africa. Greetings to North Africa. Greetings to East Africa, to West Africa, to Central Africa, Africa that has become free of colonization, and it is now developing with the leadership of its national leaders to achieve sustainable development and to promote education and to catch up with the rest of the world without leaving anyone behind. And all the efforts to fight against ignorance and disease. Africa, on its behalf and on behalf of the rest of the world. South Africa now is bringing Israel to the International Court of Justice, and it has accused it of genocide against the Palestinian people in Gaza. Today, Israel is accused in front of the entire world and in front of the International Court of Justice as a criminal state. On the 19th of February, the International Court of Justice will also start hearings of 56 cases to show that the Israeli occupation is illegal. All of this on the basis of a decision made by the UN General Assembly as presented by Palestine. Dear participants, yesterday Human Rights Watch and Amnesty International said that Israel was an apartheid state, a state of racial discrimination following everything that happened. Is it really acceptable to be with Israel and with Israeli policies? The African Union was right in preventing Israel from becoming an observer country in this union. The African Union was correct when it prevented the coming of Israeli representative into this meeting last year, and they were taken out of the meeting hall. Let's hear loud and clear the voice of union, as it has always been the case, by calling for an end to the killing and the aggression that is perpetrated by Israel against the Palestinian people, particularly in Gaza and today in Rafah and in the occupied territories and Al-Quds. Let your voice be heard to fight against the settlement-based colonial project that is being implemented by Israel in the Palestinian land. Let your voice be heard to call for bringing in assistance to the Palestinian people in Gaza. What is brought in today does not represent more than 8%. Let your voice be heard to oblige Israel to provide hospitals with energy and water. Let the voice of Africa and the voice of your union be loud and clear to support the Palestinian people to establish the Palestinian state and to recognize it as a state, a member state of the United Nations, because it was created 12 years ago. Ladies and gentlemen, today there are different political projects that are being considered. There is a political project led by the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, and we are working with them. And ideas were also brought forth by Spain and the European Union, calling for an international peace conference that will lead to a recognition of the state of Palestine. And there were also general ideas presented by the United Kingdom at a time when there was no partner in Palestine. There are also efforts in the United States, but these efforts talk about the two-state solution. We welcome all these efforts, but we also want to go beyond the stage of declarations and ideas to action. Ladies and gentlemen, the peace process since the Madrid conference in 1991 dates back 31 years ago. But there is a delay, and there are more settlers. The separation wall is completed. Our financial funds are frozen by Israel, and now we have a genocide war in addition to terrorism by settlers. All of this is in favor of the Israeli strategy to sabotage the two-state solution. Today, we cannot go back to negotiations that can last for another 33 years more. The world needs to recognize the state of Palestine on the basis of the borders of 1967, and this decision can be adopted by the Peace and Security Council, and by providing a time frame to end the occupation and to deal with the issues of refugees, settlements, and in this way only can we be faithful to the souls of our martyrs. It is only in this way Palestinian prisoners can become free. It is only in this way peace in the region can become possible for Palestine, for the Arab world, and for the rest of the world. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, I wish to reiterate my thanks to the African Union and for its support to Palestine, the voice of freedom and justice. It has invited Palestine to this meeting. Long live Palestine, and long live African and Palestinian solidarity. Thank you very much for your attention.
Shukran.
Thank you, Dr. Mohammed Ibrahim Shtia, Prime Minister of the State of Palestine. We thank you for your address.
Honorable distinguished delegates, I now have the pleasure to invite His Excellency Mr. Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, President of the Federative Republic of Brazil. Excellency.
First of all, I would enjoy to say to all of you that I have already participated in a political visit and also participated in many conferences and demonstrations. And so I want to say to all of you now that I am thrilled and deeply emotioned to be participating in the 37th Summit meeting of the African Union. I also want to greet all the members, and especially our brother, Nandi, that is a brother, the Prime Minister of Ethiopia, received me very warmly in his cabinet. And also I would like to greet our dear Abusami and our dear President of the African Union, which I had the honor to be invited for this meeting. And I also would like to greet all presidents, all prime ministers, distinguished guests, and allow me to treat you as brothers and sisters. Usually we treat ourselves by Your Excellencies. Many times we are distant ourselves in our relationship when actually we should get closer and build more ties. I would like to say to all of you first that it's with great joy that I come back for the 21st time to African continent, now once again as the President of Brazil, to address the leaders of the African Union. I come here to reaffirm the partnership and the ties of our country and of our people with this brother continent. The African struggle has a lot in common with the challenges that we face in Brazil, the Brazilian people faces. More than half of the 200 million Brazilians recognize themselves as Afro descent. We, Africans and Brazilians, we need to design our own path in the international order that is now emerging. We need to create a new global governance capable of confronting the challenges of our time. The thesis of the minimum state are now in effect anymore. To plan agricultural development and industrial development is once again part of public policies in all quadrants of the earth. The digital and energy transitions demand incentive and guidance from the governments. Attempts to try to restore an international system based on ideological blocks do not have a ballast in reality. Multipolarity is a component that we cannot forget, and welcome to the 21st century. The consolidation of the BRICS as the main space of networking of the emerging countries is undeniable advancement. Without the developing countries, it will not be possible the opening of a new cycle of world expansion that will combine growth, reduction of inequalities, and environmental conservation with the enhancement of freedoms. The global south is becoming a part that cannot be bypassed in terms of bringing a solution for the main crises that affect the planet. Crises that come from a model that concentrates wealth and that affect mainly the poorest, and amongst these, the migrants. The alternative to the scourges of the neoliberal globalization will not come from the racist extreme right and xenophobic right. Development cannot be the privilege of just a few. Only an inclusive social project will allow us to build prosperous societies that are free, democratic, and sovereign. There will be no stability, neither democracy, with hunger and unemployment. The moment is very proper to reclaim the best humanist traditions of the great leaders of the decolonization of Africa. To be humanist today implies to condemn the attacks that were perpetrated by Hamas against Israeli civilians and to demand the immediate freedom of all hostages. To be humanist also imposes equally to refuse an unproportional reaction from Israel that victimized almost 30,000 Palestinians in Gaza, the majority of them women and children, and that has provoked the forced displacement of more than 80% of the population. The solution for this crisis will only be everlasting if we move fast, advancing in the creation of a Palestine state, free and sovereign, a Palestine state that is recognized as full member of the United Nations. To have a strengthened UN, and that we should have a UN Security Council that should have a greater representation without countries that have veto powers and with permanent members from Africa and Latin America. For 2 years, the Ukraine war shows and paralyzes and exposes the UN Security Council. Besides the tragic loss of lives, we see the consequences that are felt around the world in the price of the food, stable, and fertilizers. There will be no military solution for this conflict. Now is the time for politics and diplomacy. Ladies and gentlemen, with your 1,500,000,000 inhabitants and its immense and very rich territory, Africa has tremendous possibilities for the future. Brazil wants to grow and needs to go together with Africa. The Brazilian people is restoring its political and economic sovereignty. We are adopting an ecological transformation project that will allow us to have a quality leap forward in an historic way. We are reclaiming our democracy, making it more and more a participatory democracy. With the Bolsa Família, the family stipend, and other public policies that are well succeeded, we will once again leave the map of hunger, withdrawing millions, lifting millions from poverty. To talk about inclusive education, which is the theme of this summit meeting, is to talk about the future. In the world, almost 250 million children are out of school. In Brazil, we are implementing schools in full time, besides the payment of a small savings for the students, the poor students in the secondary school, as a way to reduce school dropouts. We will enhance the number of scholarships that will be offered for the students from African students that study in our public institutions of higher education. We are willing to develop educational programs together with Africa and to promote intense exchange of professors and researchers between the two. We want to collaborate that Africa could become independent in terms of food production and providing clean energy and from renewable sources. We're talking about 400 million hectares squatted in more than 25 countries, with a great potential to make this continent a great barn for the world, making feasible policies to fight hunger and to produce alternative sources of energy, including biofuels. I would like also to extend our partnership to the healthcare area. There's a lot to learn with the sanitation strategies on both sides and the possibility for us to structure robust public systems that have a broad outreach. Let's work with the African Center for Control and Prevention of Diseases to confront tropical diseases that are neglected by the developed world. Let's have as a goal to enhance the access to medication, avoiding the repetition of the apartheid of vaccines that we saw during the COVID-19.
With that,
we should also take care of the health of our planet. That should also be our top priority. The imperative to protect the two largest tropical forests of the world, the Amazon tropical forest and the Congo tropical forest, and will make us players, important players in the climate change agenda. The international instruments existing today are not sufficient to reward in an efficient way the protection of these forests, their biodiversity, and the people that live in the forests, that take care and rely on these biomes. With the reclaiming of degraded areas, we can create a true green belt of protecting our forests from the global south. Together with our African partners, Brazil wants to develop and to build a family of satellites so that we can monitor together the deforestation and to monitor our agricultural outputs. To move forward with all these initiatives, we will create an advanced post of cooperation together with the African Union in sectors such as agricultural research, healthcare, education, environment, science, and technology. Our diplomatic representation here in Addis Ababa will soon have employees of government agencies from Brazil, like the Brazilian Agency for Cooperation, our Brazilian Agricultural Research Company, and Fiocruz, a foundation for research and development in agriculture and health. All this is to see if we can recover and restore our possibility of cooperation with the African countries. The presence of the African Union as a full member of the G20 will be of great value, but it's still necessary to include other countries of this continent as full members of the G20. I discovered something very interesting. When I made a visit to many African countries in the past to try to manage to get support so that Brazil could host the Olympic Games of 2016, I discovered something that was extraordinary. That was the following: the power of the rich and the power of the poor. I discovered that the African continent, with 54 countries, had less delegates to the International Olympic Committee than countries with 6 million inhabitants only. And so it's necessary to change this, and we have to take into account that we have to gather urgently the representation of the developing countries in the multilateral fora and in the institutions that were created during Bretton Woods in '45, so that we can try to fix the world and avoid new wars. These institutions that were created a long time ago don't help us anymore. On the contrary, they strangle countries. So that's why we have common agenda to advocate for. It is unacceptable that a world that is capable to create wealth in the order of $100 trillion per year, we still have to live with more than 735 million people that are in hunger. We're creating at the G20, which Brazil chairs, a global alliance against hunger so that we can trigger a set of public policies and mobilize resources to finance these policies. Around 60 countries, many of them coming from Africa, are very close to bankruptcy and destined more resources to pay back their foreign debt than for applying the resources to education and health care. This reflects the obsolete nature of the financial institutions such as the IMF and the World Bank that many times aggravate crises that they should help to solve. It is necessary to seek solutions to transform unfair and unpayable debts in concrete assets like highways, railroads, hydroelectrical plants, wind farms, solar power, green hydrogen production of energy, and transmission lines. We have to follow step by step the evolution of the new technologies. Artificial intelligence cannot be the monopoly of very few countries and companies. They cannot also be the fertile terrain for hate discourses and misinformation, besides causing unemployment and reinforcing the biases of race and gender that create more injustice and discrimination. Brazil will promote the interaction of the G20 with the high-level panel created by the Secretary General of the UN to support the discussions about the Global Digital Compact. We hope with that to contribute for an effective and multilateral governance in terms of artificial intelligence, and that will incorporate fully the interests of the Global South. My friends, I would like to end saying that there's no Global South without the African continent. To go back and to reclaim the getting closer Brazil with Africa and to restore historical ties and to contribute to build a new world order that is more fair and with solidarity, and allow us mainly to add up our efforts to overcome the challenge that we have ahead. And I would like to say to our friends here from the African continent, Brazil always looked around to the world without looking towards the African continent. Brazil, for many centuries, was governed looking towards the U.S. and Europe, looking to Europe, and Brazil never didn't look to South America, that it gave its back, and even less, we looked towards the African continent. When I took the presidency, when I took office in 2003, I decided that Brazil should get closer to the African continent, understanding what the Brazilian ambassador in those days would say. That said that Africa and Brazil had borderlines between themselves. They were only divided by a river called the Atlantic Ocean. The ocean is not a hurdle, so for us to get closer, it is a blessing from God for us. And so that's why not only I visit 20 times the African continent, and I open 19 embassies, Brazilian embassies in the African continent. I open a plant, an anti-retroviral plant in Mozambique, and we brought an agricultural technological company came to Ghana. But that's all over. Now I came back to be the president of the country, and I want to say to all of you here that I'm back, and I want give my contribution to the African continent. Brazil doesn't have everything that we think we have. Brazil doesn't have all the money that I would enjoy for us to have. Brazil doesn't have all the scientific and technological knowledge that I would enjoy that we would have. Brazil does not have in the world the strength that it should have. But what I would like to end with my words is to say to all of you here, everything, little or a lot, that Brazil has, I want to share it with the African countries, because we have an historical indebtedness of 350 years of enslavement, and the only way to pay back this debt is through truth and with a lot of love. A great hug to all of you. Thank you very much.
you.
Thank you. Thank you many, many times, Your Excellency, for your statement. And now, Excellencies, honorable delegates, it's my distinct honor and pleasure to invite His Excellency Mr. Ghazali Osmani, President of the Union of Comoros and Chairperson of the African Union, to deliver his opening statement. Thank you.
Oh, Lula.
Excellence, Monsieur le Premier ministre d'Éthiopie, notre cher Abiy,
Excellency, Prime Minister, Excellencies, Heads of State and Government, Excellency Lula da Silva, President of Brazil, Honorable Prime Minister of Palestine, our dear brother, Abu Ghais, Secretary General of the League of Arab States, my dear brother Moussa Faki, Chairperson of the African Union Commission, Honorable Ministers, distinguished ambassadors, heads of delegation, invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. May I, first of all, with all the emotion, feeling, and sadness, to convey on your behalf and on my own behalf my heartfelt condolence to the authorities, the people, and the family of the late President, our brother, former President Hage Geingob, the President of the Republic of Namibia. He is passing away. It's a great loss for his country, but also for our continental organization. I would like to seize this opportunity to convey to you all my best wishes for this new year 2024. May this year bring us happiness, health, and prosperity. Then I would like to thank most warmly the government of Ethiopia for the warm welcome. Each time that we come for a meeting here, we are accorded this warm welcome each time we come for these sessions, and all the facilities in cooperation with the African Union Commission to ensure the success of the 37th Ordinary Session of the Assembly of our organization. I would like also to greet all my colleagues, heads of state and government, who work relentlessly for the development of our organization, the Pan-African organization. Furthermore, I would like to thank my brother Moussa Faki.
Notre mission commune au service de notre cher continent. Excellences, Mesdames et Messieurs, il y a un an, jour pour jour, du haut de cette même tribune, vous m'avez confié la noble responsabilité de présider notre organisation, offrant ainsi la possibilité à un État insulaire de conduire la destinée de notre continent dans un esprit de solidarité inclusive, entre toutes les catégories des États membres de notre organisation. Cet élan de solidarité m'a conduit, en plus du thème de l'année 2023 consacré à l'accélération de la ZLECAf, à inscrire au centre de mon mandat les questions liées à la gouvernance maritime, au changement climatique, avec l'intérêt particulier pour la promotion et la préservation de la paix et la sécurité dans notre cher continent. Cette préoccupation sécuritaire partagée aura guidé toutes nos actions au cours de mon mandat, convaincu que la pacification de notre continent demeure le socle de la réalisation de notre vision à l'horizon 2063 pour une Afrique unie et prospère. Et c'est ainsi que, dès mon investiture à la présidence de notre organisation, ma première action a été de prendre part au débat du haut niveau organisé par le Conseil de sécurité des Nations Unies, présidé par notre pays frère, le Mozambique, à New York au mois de mars 2023, consacré à la lutte contre le terrorisme et l'extrémisme violent. À cette occasion, j'ai plaidé pour la mise en place des mécanismes de financement pérennes et durables en faveur des opérations de maintien de la paix sur le continent africain. Dans cette dynamique de promotion de la paix, et s'agissant du Soudan, ce pays frère, j'ai initié plusieurs rencontres avec les deux généraux, Al-Burhan et Mehdi, ainsi qu'avec les différents acteurs de la guerre en vue de les engager sur la voie du dialogue pour faire taire les armes. Animé de la même volonté de préserver la paix et la stabilité du continent, je me suis rendu en Guinée-Conakry en juin dernier et tout récemment au Gabon pour encourager leurs dirigeants à accélérer le processus de transition devant mener au retour de leurs pays respectifs à l'ordre constitutionnel. J'ai également rencontré des délégations du Sahel et envoyé des émissaires
envoys to the different countries of that region to preach peace, harmony on behalf of our organization. With regard to the crisis in the eastern part of DRC, who
et j'ai eu l'honneur de présider le sommet quadripartite le 27 juin 2023 à Luanda en présence des organisations régionales et des pays des Grands Lacs visant à trouver des solutions appropriées à la résolution de cette crise. En début de ce mois de février, lors du sommet de haut niveau de l'Union africaine sur la Libye,
the African Union on Libya, held in Brazzaville, under the chairmanship of our brother Sassou Nguesso, president of the high-level committee, and I reaffirmed the imperative need for bringing peace to this great country of our continent so that we could restore peace and stability and development in that country. Peace in Africa depends on peace in the rest of the world. Some of my colleagues and myself, African leaders, we went to Ukraine and to Russia last June in order to convey the message of mediation of Africa in the conflict and dispute that opposes these two countries and the negative impact on our economies. I supported on behalf of my country the initiative taken by South Africa, and once again I want to thank and encourage President Ramaphosa, the International Court of Justice, to denounce the genocide which Israel is committing in Palestine on our nose. The international community cannot close its eyes on the atrocities that are committed, which has not only created chaos in Palestine, but also has disastrous consequences on the rest of the world. Indeed, what is happening there. Thus, I would like to call upon our Assembly to contribute, to put an end to the sufferings of the Palestinian people, and to continue to support the efforts aimed at establishing two states, Israel and Palestine, living side by side in peace and stability. Honorable Prime Minister of Palestine, rest assured that African Union is with Palestine and will support Palestine for its unity and its dignity. As you know, in 2023, the Union of the Comoros took over the mantle of the chairmanship of the African Union and placed it under the theme of acceleration of the implementation of the African Continental Free Trade Area. And in this context, I carried out an advocacy with the countries that had not yet ratified the AFCFTA agreement by sending envoys that made it possible to accelerate the process of their acceding to that process. We managed to increase the number of the countries in the new initiative and guided trade initiative. In addition, efforts have been made and results obtained in the ratification as well as the application of the tariff offers to the Secretary General of the AFCFTA. Furthermore, the Secretary General of the AFCFTA had done us the honor of visiting Moroni, and it was an opportunity to discuss the very basis of the functioning of the AFCFTA, destined to make African countries and the private sector contribute effectively in the trade environment established within the framework of the AFCFTA agreement. In the activities, I also made the advocacy in favor of increasing investments, public and private investments, and particularly in the area of infrastructure and the reform of the international financial institutions. In this regard, I want to commend the remarkable work done by the President of the African Development Bank, our brother Addiswalta, whom I ask you to applaud, who has left no stone unturned in order to support the African members, African countries, through the promotion of infrastructures and innovative infrastructure. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the term as chairman of the African Union has been an opportunity which has been a lever for us to encourage the consideration of the potentialities on the vast maritime areas and the continental exclusive zone, so that this continental vision could be inclusive. Agenda 2063, whose second 10-year plan will determine this blue economy as being the new frontier, the new border of African Renaissance. In this perspective, in Moroni we organized a ministerial conference on blue economy and climate action in June 2023. The Moroni Declaration adopted on that occasion, in fact, pleads for common large-scale action that will highlight the various contributions to the island states as well as the coastal states or the development of our continent. This declaration has been taken into account at the first summit on climate held in Nairobi in 2023 and COP28 in Dubai. And I want to say that 2023 has been decisive for our continent because peace and Africa's agenda has been presented everywhere. Africa that wins, Africa that we want, and also the admission of African Union in the G20 is also a success. And this augurs well for the prospects of our continent in the sense that Africa henceforth forms part of world economic governance. This raises a lot of hope as regards the legitimate claims of Africa to be considered to have a permanent seat in the UN Security Council. Dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, at all international summits in which I participated in my capacity as the current chairman of the African Union, G7 in Japan, going through the second summit, Russia-Africa in Russia, the BRICS in South Africa, then Africa in Cuba, and also the EU is in Brussels and the Africa-Italy summit. I left no stone unturned to defend the interests of our continent by participating in the conference on that is Compact with Africa held in Berlin, Germany in November 2023 in the presence of many African colleagues and European colleagues. I wanted to mark our interest in the growth in private investment, national and foreign investments in order to create jobs and wealth sharing on the continent. Participating in the recent summit that is Italy-Africa, of course, followed the same route. This country that has assumed the chairmanship of G7, I urge them to accelerate the implementation of the partnership for infrastructure and investments. Furthermore, I would like to underscore that the potential of African youth in Africa is an asset that we have to use in all our projects. I welcome the initiative of 1 million plus launched by Auda Nepad in Moroni, and which aims at making our youth an important and necessary link in the development of Africa. So a particular attention was given to the integration and to fight against such scourges as violence against discrimination against women. In Moroni, the positive masculinity was held also in Moroni, and we organized jointly with President Ramaphosa in South Africa the third Conference of Men on Positive Masculinity of the African Union in November 2023. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, may I stress that Africa should make sure that its voice is heard in the architecture of development financing, which is being unfolded under the G20. We have to see the opportunity of our pertinence to the G20 in order to form alliances and coalition with our partners so that the ongoing reforms at the international level be in line with the collective interests of our countries. At the time when I will hand over, I want to say here loudly and clearly that I am very much grateful and that you have honored me on behalf of my country, the Union of the Comoros, in the service of our continent and the sons and daughters of this continent. And I cannot conclude my statement without expressing my sincere gratitude to the states of the East African region who did me the honor of entrusting to me the responsibility of taking the chairmanship of the organization. I want to thank the members of the Bureau of the Assembly and the chairperson of the African Union Commission for the active solidarity that had marked our common action, the convergence of views and on various issues, and also that we be heard. I express my gratitude to all the partners, bilateral and multilateral partners, who have given me their invaluable support in the exercise of my mandate as the chairman of the African Union. And I don't forget the remarkable work done by my colleagues in Moroni, the government, members of the cabinet, and the support that the Comorian Committee on the African Union. So we would like to wish full success to my brother Muhammad Ul-Ghazwani, who will take over for the noble mission that will be entrusted to him in the service of our continent, and I thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency, for your statement. We will now proceed with the announcement of the new Bureau of the Assembly. May I invite Ambassador Yusuf Manduha, the Ambassador of the Comoros, the Ambassador of the Union of the Comoros, and the General Dean to come to the podium and announce the new Bureau of the Assembly. Your Excellency.
Excellence,
Your Excellency, President of the Union of Comoros, Mr. Azali Assoumani, outgoing Chairperson of the African Union, distinguished heads of state and government of the African Union, distinguished Prime Minister of the Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia, the Prime Minister of the State of Palestine, the Secretary General of the League of Arab States, Chairperson of the African Union Commission, Mr. Moussa Faki Mahamat, Honorable Ministers, apologies first, Your Excellency, the President of the Federative Republic of Brazil, Honorable Ministers, Ambassadors, heads of the African Union organs, distinguished commissioners, all protocol observed. Assalamu alaikum to you all. It is my singular pleasure and honor to present to you the new composition of the Assembly of the African Union for the year 2024, and this is in line with the rules of procedure of the Assembly, particularly in its Article 16. And so the Bureau of the Assembly will read as follows. Chairperson, the Islamic Republic of Mauritania, First Vice Chair, the Republic of Angola, Second Vice Chairperson, the Republic of Congo, Third Vice Chairperson, the Republic of Ghana, Rapporteur of the Bureau of the Assembly, the Union of Comoros. So, Your Excellencies, this is the composition of the new Bureau of the Assembly for the year 2024, and I thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Ambassador, for the announcement, and I have the honor and pleasure to invite His Excellency President Ghazali Osmani, President of the Union of the Comoros, to deliver his handover statement. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Directeur.
Thank you very much, Chief of Protocol. Ladies and gentlemen, on your behalf, allow me to first of all extend our warm gratitude to His Excellency Mr. Mohamed Ould Ghazali, President of the Islamic Republic of Mauritania, for the new mission that has just been passed on to him as the incoming chairperson of the Union. May I also wish the entire Bureau of the Assembly full success, and I know that the composition is an outcome of consultations in line with our rules of procedure. Rest assured that I stand available to work with you throughout the following 12 months for the entire year, so that we can together work to attain our objectives, and also to make sure that we put in place a resilient education system, which is the theme of the year 2024. So it is on this note that I'm going to hand over this position as the chairperson of the African Union for the year 2024 to our brother Mohamed Ould Ghazali, the President of the Islamic Republic of Mauritania, and I wish him Godspeed and good luck. Please, Mr. President of Mauritania, take your floor, take your seat here on the podium.
And I now call His Excellency President of the Islamic Republic of Mauritania, the new chairperson of the African Union, to the handover ceremony. Thank you.
Il a peur, quoi, je vais se la tête. Il a peur. Je viens. Rassurez-vous de ma fidélité. Merci beaucoup. Je m'amène à vous accompagner sur cette mission. Tu ne vas pas me donner le drapeau? Ah, je le prends. Non, je vais le mettre moi-même. Voilà.
Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to invite the President of the Islamic Republic of Mauritania and Chairperson of the African Union for the year 2024, His Excellency Muhammad Wil Sheikh Al-Ghazwani to deliver his acceptance statement. Please, Your Excellency.
Merci. Shukran.
Thank you. At the outset, Excellencies, Heads of State and Government, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf, I wish to extend my thanks to His Excellency, Mr. Azali Osomani, the President of the Union of the Comoros and the outgoing Chairperson of the African Union, for the excellent chairmanship of the Bureau of the Assembly during his term. I thank you, President Aswan. Allow me now to make my address.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
Excellencies, heads of state and government, dear colleagues, Excellency, President of Brazil, Mr. Lula da Silva, Excellency, Prime Minister of the State of Palestine, Mohammed Ibrahim Shetia, heads of delegation, Excellencies, Ministers, Chairperson of the African Union Commission, Secretary General of the League of Arab States, representatives of international organizations, ambassadors, ladies and gentlemen. At the outset of my address, on your behalf and on behalf of myself, allow me to extend my thanks to the people and government of the Federal Republic of Ethiopia for the hospitality accorded to us that they have always given to us on the occasion of the organization of our various summits in this beautiful African capital. This beautiful city is the cradle of the first institutional expression of our will to integrate. This was initiated by the fathers of the OAU. All of this is reflected in what President Mukhtar Wildada said in his address in 1963. Quote, "The whole world is looking at us now, especially our African people. The crime that we can commit against our people is to fail." End of quote. The late president believed in upgrading the level of African joint action. He believed that his country represented a historical link between the north and the south of the continent. and he wanted the country to be one of the pillars of the new African organization. Allow me, dear colleagues, to express to you my respect and my deep gratitude for the trust bestowed in me. I specifically refer to my brothers, the leaders of the northern region, who have honored me as you have done to choose me as the chairperson of this union to serve our union. I am honored by this choice, and I understand the volume of responsibilities I have, particularly in the midst of this critical period through which our continent is going at the moment. I shall bear this responsibility on the basis of continued consultation and close coordination with all of you. I would like to congratulate my brother and friend, His Excellency Azani Ousmane, the President of the Union of the Comoros, for his leadership skills and for the efforts he made to promote the work of our union to achieve the aspirations of African people. I hail at the same time what His Excellency Musa Faki Mohammed, the chairperson of the African Union Commission, and his team are doing at the moment, along with the various African institutions, in order to play a constructive role to revamp the performance of the Union in terms of effectiveness. Ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, what the fathers looked for was what we built together in terms of Agenda 2063. It reflects our plans to develop to create the Africa we want, an integrated and prosperous Africa where peace prevails and where citizens are the leaders of the continent as a power in the international arena. The success of our plans and strategies to achieve this noble goal depends on an effective use of human resources to have an effective quality educational system that is open to new technologies. The adoption of an educational program in Africa to achieve continued and quality education in this year means that this is the right way forward. Education is the starting point for a sustainable development. It is a major support for peace and security. It is based on promoting skills, and this opens up new job opportunities. It reduces unemployment, poverty, and marginalization. Allow me, dear colleagues, to focus here on youths. Youths represent at the moment about 62% of the African populations. The loss of our youths is the loss of our continent. An uneducated youth means that Africa remains uneducated. African youths lacking the basic skills and who are unemployed in their countries and who are now taking up the boats of death through illegal immigration because of the absence of the horizon for a life in dignity and because of the absence of living in dignity in their country. All of these elements points are also of concern to us, and this means that we need a revolution in our educational systems. Our continent is lagging behind when it comes to the achievement of the fourth objective of development. We need to have comprehensive development, and we need to address the problems faced by our educational systems because of low accessibility and the high rates of dropouts, in addition to low quality of training and the various challenges. It is not acceptable to leave 17% of our children out of schools, out of primary schools. 75% of our young people do not have the skills that they need in secondary education. We all have, as governments and civil society and various actors, we have to deploy further efforts to mobilize the human and technical and financial resources to create a revolution in our educational systems. The aim is to provide our girls and boys on equal footing with the same opportunity to have the necessary skills on a continuous basis. The aim is to unleash the potential of African women and to enable them to participate in the leadership positions and in development. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, 10 years ago, the first decade plan was adapted within the framework of Agenda 2063. This is part of the mid-term development plan of the African countries and in REX and in the various regions. 10 years ago, the context was not conducive to development, and crises were multiple. There were health crises, environmental and security crises. All of them have had an impact on increasing challenges and represented major impediments to development. These challenges impeded the implementation of Agenda 2063. However, some promising progress has been made in different areas, such as the development achieved in the establishment of the AFCFTA and the establishment of the first stages, particularly with regard to the promotion of commodities and now the new protocols on investment have been adopted to promote competition. Now we have worked seriously on the digital identification of the AFCFTA and the agreement on the rules of origin. Some promising progress has been achieved in terms of the digital infrastructure and the road infrastructure, and also in relation to free skies. 37 countries have joined the African Common Market on aviation, in addition to the mechanisms and the new partnerships to develop Africa, and also in relation to the development of Ouda Nepat. We are now part of G20. We need to work harder to promote to reform the UN system to consolidate the presence of our continent in its leadership position, with now the new seat in the Peace and Security Council. With your support, and we shall deploy further efforts particularly with regard to the various reforms to create a new agreements on promoting development, and all of this on the basis of flexibility and greater access to funding that should not increase our debt. We also hail the efforts made by the African Development Bank in this regard. I shall work with you to establish in favor of a multipolar system that is more balanced and fair, and which takes into account the interests of the least developing countries, and where our continent has a voice that is heard. The current international system, as it is now, is characterized by bias and double standards at the expense of the weaker and the least developed countries. And this has an impact on the rights and the causes of our continent. To understand the need for this international system to be reformed, we need to look at what is happening in Gaza in terms of destruction and the violation of international legality, in addition to the violation of human rights. The international community is not putting its weight to stop the war and to have a ceasefire and to provide the population with assistance. All of this to ensure the Palestinian people's right to establish an independent state with Eastern Jerusalem as its capital in line with international law. On this occasion, I am proud of the positions of the African Union, which reject injustice and which are based on promoting international law, particularly when it comes to the Palestinian cause. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, in spite of the progress made here and there, in some areas, slowness is still the characteristic of our work. Thus, and within the framework of the decade 2024-2034, we need to intensify efforts to deal with the situation in different areas in the continent. Over 600 million Africans do not have access to electricity in the 21st century. Our continent has over 50% of utter poverty in the world, and it has, whereas it has 25% of arable land in the world. It only contributes 10% to the world agricultural produce. This is a continuous threat to its food security. We all know there is no sovereignty with effective food and systems that are sustainable. The Ukrainian-Russian crisis shows our limited capacity to face the crisis because of the trouble we witnessed in supply chains. Our continent is going through a paradox. There is a gap between the tremendous human resources, the strategic position of the continent, in addition to the various natural resources that can make it a continent of peace and prosperity, and the reality that is characterized by poverty and marginalization. And to address this paradox, we need to mobilize all the resources in order to ensure an effective implementation of the second decade plan 2024-2034. The reports that will be submitted by my brothers, the presidents, and the diagnosis and the recommendations on the establishment of the AFCFTA and the implementation of the infrastructure project in its second edition, PIDA 2. In addition to the programs to promote agriculture and the common energy market, all of these plans will be have an impact on the implementation of the decade plan. The reorganization of the institutions of the African Union will be a lever to achieve these objectives. The effectiveness of the implementation of this second plan depends on our capacity to involve the private sector to implement the various themes of the plan. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, one of the major challenges facing our continent at the moment is the spread of tension and armed conflicts in addition to terrorist groups. These jeopardize peace and security, and they are affecting the social fabric of our communities with a negative impact on the living conditions of the populations. Terrorism and civil wars in our continent generate a loss of life and a destruction of infrastructure and economic systems. All of this means that the fight for peace and security should be our first priority. We need to work together in order to establish a common peace in the continent through the various mechanisms that are part of the Peace and Security Council, particularly with regard to the early warning systems and the standby force. We also need to promote the level of coordination within the regional economic communities and among these communities. We will not overcome the development challenges alone, and we cannot meet the development and social challenges without building a continental comprehensive policy that takes into consideration security, society, and culture. The Africa we want is the one that works hard to solve its own conflicts without waiting for ready-made solutions from abroad. Through dialogue, it can coordinate and it can find the appropriate solutions to its problems. It is true that we need to expand our partnerships with the various parties. But we should not be an arena for competition among others, which is detrimental to us economically, socially, and also from a security perspective. What makes the security situation more complicated in the continent is what we witnessed recently in terms of the unconstitutional changes that have an impact on the social and political stability of many countries. Of course, our union has made significant efforts through its legal mechanisms and through its various decisions and declarations. As we did in Algiers in 1999 and in Lomé and Accra in 2020 to deal with unconstitutional changes. But this did not prevent the return of unconstitutional change in our continent. All of this means that we need to work together to consecrate the rule of law and to establish real democracies that guarantee a peaceful alternation of power on the basis of stability and transparency. All of this requires that we need to pacify the political situation and overcome social conflicts and ethnic strife through dialogue and consultation. We need to improve social governance, economic governance, and political governance in general. Today, more than ever, we need to be inspired by African wisdom, the spirit of dialogue, and the search for consensus to manage the various crises. So we need to be innovative to bring back stability and peace to our societies. We need to improve economic, social, and political governments. We need to improve environmental governance. In spite of our weak contribution to the pollution which is leading to climate change, we are the most affected by this change in terms of floods, desertification, and the deterioration of our environment. Therefore, we have to deploy further efforts to promote the capacity of our citizens to adapt to the implications of climate change. And we need to work for the benefit of a sustainable climate management. Our continent has a tremendous capacity in terms of green hydrogen. This means that we can meet the challenge of access to energy and industrial transformation in the continent. All of this is possible if we can intensify coordination and partnership in order to mobilize the necessary resources to create a climate revolution by a better use of green hydrogen. With your support, I will work on using the available resources to us in the continent so that we can contribute to the achievement of the Agenda 2063. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the current situation in the world and in the continent requires more efforts on the basis of our common principles and values. We need to be aware of our common sense of destination. All of this means that we need to achieve our noble goals. The achievement of our noble goal of having a continent that is prosperous and integrated with peace and security, to be a dynamic force in the world, may, because of the current situation, may sound difficult at the moment. But as a matter of fact, this noble goal can be achieved. And we shall achieve this objective together on the basis of Agenda 2063, on the basis of the strength of our union, and because we have the tremendous resources and we have young populations on the basis of our ambitions and expectations. Therefore, all of us have to continue promoting the institutions of our union. In this way, we can have a better control of our future and affairs, and we can increase our integration and unity. And in this way, we can meet the expectations of our people, the legitimate expectations, as shown in Agenda 2063. I call upon for more unity and efforts to meet the challenges faced by our continent. I declare open this summit, the summit of the heads of state and government of the African Union, and I wish you full success in your deliberations. I thank you very much.
الشكر لكم فخامة الرئيس.
I thank you, President Mohammed Ould Sheikh Ghazouani, President of the Islamic Republic of Mauritania and Chairperson of the African Union.
Gentlemen, we will now proceed to the launch of the theme of the year 2024. I would like to invite Commissioner of Education, Science, Technology and Innovation, His Excellency Professor Mohammed Bil Hussein, to guide the proceedings on these items. Excellency.
Thank you.
Please, Excellency.
Yeah. But let the high table be in place properly.
أصحاب الفخامة والمعالي أصحاب السعادة.
Your Highnesses, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I will now give the floor to His Excellency the Commissioner Mohammed Bil Hussein, Commissioner of Education, Science and Technology. to launch the theme of the year 2024. An education for African fit for the 21st century, to have comprehensive, sustainable, quality education for Africa. Your Excellency, the Commissioner, you have the floor. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Excellence, Monsieur le Président. Excellence.
Excellency, Chairperson of the African Union Commission, distinguished heads of state and government, ministers, the Deputy Chairperson of the African Union Commission, staff of the African Union, distinguished members attending this meeting. Allow me, Mr. Chairperson, to extend to you a warm welcome to the seat of the African Union. It is my privilege to take the floor now to give you a summary of the progress that has been made. Should I proceed? Yes, please do.
Même les commissaires sont descendus.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, please, we are now in the session of launching the theme of the year 2024. Professor Mohammed Bil Hussein, the Commissioner for Education, Science, Technology and Innovation, is presenting the launch. Please. Try.
See. Excellence.
Your Excellency, Mr. President, the Chairperson of the African Union Commission, Your Excellencies, Heads of State and Government, Your Excellencies, Ministers, the Deputy Chairperson of the African Union Commission, Your Excellencies, colleagues of the African Union Commission, distinguished participants, to this session. Permit me, for starters, Chairperson, to extend to you my warm congratulations for your election to the helm of our union. I'm honored to report to you the progress achieved since last year in the preparation of a detailed concept note and of a roadmap for the implementation of a decision to make education the theme of the year 2024. The motto for the theme is, and I quote, like you already cited in Arabic, educate an African fit for the 21st century, building resilient education systems for increased access to inclusive, lifelong quality and relevant learning in Africa. End of quote. Chairperson, ladies and gentlemen, the preparation of the updated document that has been submitted to you was based on a participatory and consultative process with various multilateral and bilateral partners. The process was crowned with an extraordinary session of the STC on education, science, and technology held in October 2023 that discussed and then approved the concept note and the roadmap, reaffirming the need to maintain the building of resilient education systems in Africa. Lastly, in January 2024, the PRC also reviewed, commented, and enriched the work done, and the Executive Council endorsed the concept note and the roadmap. Chairperson, Your Excellencies, members of this august assembly, it is important to always recall that education is a fundamental human right, public good, and main public responsibility. The supply and the financing of education possibilities are therefore a primary responsibility of public institutions. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, among the very important efforts, or in spite of the very important efforts and progress achieved in the area of education, four main indicators sound the alarm. First, concerning the primary and secondary levels of education, the number of children that are out of school in sub-Saharan Africa has reached an alarming estimate of 428 million, that is about 28% of the population of school-going age. Second, the education poverty level was worsened with the COVID-19 pandemic, and today it is estimated that 9 children out of 10 aged 10 years cannot read and understand a very simple text. 3, Africa will need 17 million additional teachers to be able to cover the needs of universal primary and secondary education by 2030 to be able to achieve sustainable development goals. Lastly, fourth point, it is estimated that Africa will account for 90% of world needs for external financing for education by the year 2030, and that at least 40 billion additional resources will be needed to finance education in order to achieve sustainable development goals in respect of education and to respond to the aspirations of Agenda 2063 of the continent. This is to say how profound and systemic the education crisis is on the continent. It is therefore urgent and imperative to transform and to revitalize the entire education system on the continent. When we analyze this specific objective of the continental strategy on education and the targets of the Sustainable Development Goals number 4, we cannot but notice that the gaps between the goals and the results achieved is still wide. Also, following the World Summit in September 2022 on the transformation of education, 2 strategic information elements appeared in 2023 that can serve as levers for the transformation of education in Africa. First, the high-level group of the Secretary General of the United Nations on the teaching profession that brings together experts of the International Labour Office, UNESCO, and teachers' trade unions published recommendations, very precise recommendations, and launched an urgent appeal to governments, to organizations of teachers, to employers, to schools, to universities, to the civil society, to students, to international financial institutions and other stakeholders, so that they may adopt recommendations and transform the teaching corps into a high-level profession that is highly qualified, properly supported, and properly remunerated and supported, that is capable to guide and promote inclusive, efficient, and pertinent learning. End of quote. our member states stand to gain by domesticating these recommendations of this high-level group to give the teachers their rightful place that are a pillar for the transformation of education in Africa. Our prayer is that this year of education should serve as a catalyst for resolute actions in this regard. Also, there is a consensus on the fact that additional resources are needed to save the education system in Africa. The idea of improving coordination of financing between multilateral agencies at a global level and to explore mechanisms.
በመድረኩ ላይ የተነሱ ዋና ዋና ሐሳቦችን ለማካፈል አሁንም በድጋሚ ተገናኝተናል። የአፍሪካ ሕብረት የመሪዎች ጉባኤ የመክፈቻ ስነ ስርዓት እንደተከታተላችሁት በደማቅ ሁኔታ ተካሂዷል። በዚህ መድረክ ላይ እንግዲህ በርካቶችም መልእክታቸውን አስተላልፈዋል። የተወሰኑትን ብቻ ትኩረት አድርገን መረጃ እንለዋወጣለን። በተለይም ደግሞ የህብረቱ ኮሚሽን ሊቀመንበር ሙሳ ፋቂ መሐማት በተለይ አህጉራችን አፍሪካ በየጊዜው እየተለዋወጡ የመጡ ፈተናዎች አሁንም ድረስ እንቅፋት እንደሆኑባት በስፋት አንስተዋል። በተለይ ደግሞ የአህጉሪቱ የዲሞክራሲ ስርዓት ግንባታ ላይ የተደቀኑት ፈተናዎች እና መልካቸው በየጊዜው እየተቀያየረ የመጡት ፈተናዎች አሁንም አለመቀረፋቸው እንደ አህጉር ሊያሳስበን ይገባል ብለዋል። በተለይም ደግሞ በስፋት ያነሱት የሰላምና የዲሞክራሲ ስርዓት ግንባታ ማስፈጸሚያነት ህብረቱ የቀረጻቸው እቅዶች አሁንም ድረስ ፈቀቅ አለ ማለታቸው የህብረቱን አባል ሀገራት ሊያሳስባቸው እንደዚሁም ደግሞ በትኩረት ሊሰሩበት የሚገባ ጉዳይ መሆኑን በአጽንኦት አንስተዋል። በተለይም በዲሞክራሲያዊ ምርጫ ሳይሆን ስልጣንን በኃይል ስልጣንን በጉልበት ለመያዝ የሚደረጉ ጥረቶች አፍሪካ ላይ በተለይ በዚህ ዓመት በጣም ፈታኝ እንደነበሩና ይሄም የህብረቱ አባል ሀገራት ላይ አሁንም ድረስ ፈተና መሆኑን በስፋት አንስተዋል። ሌላው የጋራ አጀንዳ የሆኑት በተለይ ደግሞ አፍሪካውያን የሚጋሯቸው አጀንዳዎቻቸው ከሆኑት መካከል የአየር ንብረት ለውጥ እንደዚሁም የተቋማት ግንባታ ላይ እንደዚሁም የአፍሪካ የፈጥኖ ደራሽ ኃይልን ማጠናከር ላይ በትኩረት መሰራት እንዳለበት ዋና አጽንኦት ሰጥተው አንስተዋል። እንግዲህ የህብረቱ ውሳኔዎች ተፈጻሚነት በተለይ አሁንም ድረስ እየተሰራበት አለመሆኑ ህብረቱ ያለው ተአማኒነት እንዲሸረሸር ምክንያት የሆነ መምጣቱንና በዓለም አቀፍ የዲፕሎማሲ መድረክም ህብረቱ ሊኖረው የሚገባውን ቦታ እንዳያገኝ አሁን እንቅፋት የሆነበት የሚወጡት ውሳኔዎች ተፈጻሚነታቸው መጠኑ ዝቅተኛ መሆኑን በስፋት አንስተዋል። ለዚህም ነው የአፍሪካን ጉዳዮች በተለመደው መንገድ መፍታት ሳይሆን አዳዲስ መንገዶችን መፈለግ ይገባል። ለዚህ ደግሞ የአፍሪካ ሀገራት እና መንግስታት ቁርጠኛ መሆን ይገባቸዋል። የአርበኝነትና ፓን አፍሪካዊ ስሜትን በጋራ የቃኘ አስተዳደር ያስፈልጋል በሚልም ነው በስፋት በንግግራቸው ትኩረት የሰጡት። ሌላው በዚሁ በ37ኛው የህብረት የመሪዎች ጉባኤ ላይ ንግግር ያደረጉትና መልእክታቸውን ያስተላለፉት ጠቅላይ ሚኒስትር ዶክተር አብይ አህመድ ናቸው። ጠቅላይ ሚኒስትሩ በንግግራቸው በተለይ አፍሪካ የጥንት ስልጣኔ ባለቤት መሆኗንና ይሄ ስልጣኔዋን በተለያየ መልኩ ሊገለጽ የሚችል እንደዚሁም በግብርና፣ በሕክምና፣ በግንባታ ጥበብና በብዙ መስኮች አፍሪካ የላቀ ማንነትን ተጎናጽፋ የኖረች መሆኗን ነገር ግን በቅኝ ግዛት ወረራ እነዚህ የኖሩ ማንነቶቿ እና ጠንካራ ማህበረሰባዊ ትስስሮቿ እንዲበታተኑ እንዲሸረሸሩ ብዙ መሰራቱን አንስተዋል። እንግዲህ እዚህ ላይ የኢትዮጵያንም እንደ ምሳሌ አንስተዋል። በተለይ ደግሞ ቅኝ ግዛትን በህዝቧ መስዋዕትነት ማሸነፍ ብትችልም በአድዋ ድል ማስቀረት ብትችልም አሁንም ድረስ ግን ልዩነቶች ላይ ብቻ በማተኮር በህዝቦች መካከል ያለ ልዩነት እንዲጎላ በማድረግ የሀገር አንድነት ላይ የሚደቀኑ ፈተናዎች እንዳልተቋረጡ መልካቸው እየተቀያየረ የሚደጋገም መሆኑን በስፋት አንስተዋል። እንግዲህ በተለይ ደግሞ የምግብ ዋስትናን በተመለከተ ጠቅላይ ሚኒስትር ዶክተር አብይ አህመድ በስፋት ያነሱትና ሁሉም አፍሪካዊ ሊቆጭበት ይገባል ያሉት ጉዳይ አፍሪካ ካላት እምቅ የተፈጥሮ ሀብት የሰፊ መሬት በጣም ትልቅ የሆነ የውሃ ሀብት እንደዚሁም ደግሞ በጣም ብዙ የሰው ሀብት አላትና ይህንን የያዘች አህጉር አሁንም ድረስ በእርዳታ መኖሯ ሊያስቆጭ ይገባል። ለዚህም ነው የአፍሪካ የምግብ ሉዓላዊነትን የማስከበር አጀንዳ ለነገ የሚታው ጉዳይ እንዳልሆነ አጽንኦት ሰጥተው አንስተውታል። እንግዲህ የዘንድሮ የህብረቱ መሪ ሐሳብ በሆነው በአጀንዳ በዋናነት ስንመለከት የትምህርት እንደሆነ ስንጠቅስ ቆይተናልና በተለይ ደግሞ እዚህ ላይ ኢትዮጵያ ያከናወነቻቸው ተጨባጭ ለውጦችና ውጤቶችንም በንግግራቸው በስፋት አንስተዋል። የትምህርት ጥራት ላይ በማተኮር በኢትዮጵያ በኩል ከቅድመ መደበኛ እስከ ከፍተኛ ትምህርት ድረስ በስፋት ሲሰራ መቆየቱን ከፖሊሲ ጀምሮ እስከ ትግበራ ድረስ የተለያዩ ለውጦች ላይ ትኩረት ያደረገ እንደ ሀገር ስራ መሰራቱን አንስተዋል። በተለይ የህዝብ ቁጥሯ በከፍተኛ ሁኔታ እየጨመረ የምትገኘው አፍሪካ ውስጥ የሚወሰዱ የልማት ስራዎች የህዝብ ቁጥርን እንደ ሀብት መጠቀም የሚያስችሉ ሊሆኑ እንደሚገባና ሌሎችም ስራዎች በተለይ ዴሞክራሲ ግንባታው እንደዚሁም ደግሞ የስራ አጥነትም ላይ የሚፈጠሩ ጫናዎችን ለመቀነስ የሚያስችል የትምህርት ስርዓት ዝርጋታ መኖር እንዳለበትም በስፋት ጠቅሰዋል። እንግዲህ ይሄንና የዛሬውን እንደዚሁም የመጪውን ጊዜ ፈተናዎችን ለመጋፈጥ የሚቻለው አፍሪካውያን በእነዚህ ሶስት ዋና ዋና ጉዳዮች ላይ መስራት ሲችሉ ነው በሚልም ነው የጠቀሱት። የቴክኖሎጂ ልማት ላይ፣ የመሰረተ ልማት ግንባታ እንደዚሁም ሰላምና መረጋጋት ላይ በጣም ትኩረት መስጠት እንዳለባቸው በመልእክታቸው በስፋት ዳሰዋል። እንግዲህ ከነዚህ ዋና ዋና ጉዳዮች ውስጥ በተለይም ደግሞ የቴክኖሎጂ ልማት ላይ የተነሳውንና ዘንድሮ ኢትዮጵያ በተለየ ሁኔታ ለመጀመሪያ ጊዜ የራሷን አጀንዳ ቀርጻ ትልቅ መድረክ እያዘጋጀች መሆኑ ይታወቃል። ከህብረቱ የመሪዎች ጉባኤ ጎን ለጎን የሚካሄድ ማለት ነው። ይሄ የህብረቱ አጀንዳና በተለይ ደግሞ በዚህ መድረክ ላይ ጠቅላይ ሚኒስትሩ ያነሷቸው ዋና ዋና ሀሳቦችና ይሄ መድረክ ላይ የሚነሳው ሀሳብ በቀጥታ ግንኙነት ያለው መሆኑንም እዚህ ላይ መገንዘብ ያስፈልጋል። በኢትዮጵያ አጀንዳ ቀራጭነት ዛሬ አንዱ የሚካሄደው የህብረቱ ተጓዳኝ ጉባኤ ዲጂታላይዜሽን ለአፍሪካ ትራንስፎርሜሽን መጠቀም የሚለው ነው። ጠቅላይ ሚኒስትር ዶክተር አብይ በህብረቱ ንግግራቸው ላይ ይህንን በቀጥታ የሚመለከት ሀሳብን አንስተዋል። በተለይ የሰው ሰራሽ አስተውሎት አሁን ያለንበትን ዓለም መልክ እየቀየረ የሚገኝ ነው። የአራተኛው የኢንዱስትሪ አብዮትን በሚል ይጠቀሳልና አፍሪካም ከዚህ እጅግ በጣም ፈጣን ከሆነ ለውጥ እያስመዘገበ ከሚገኝ የቴክኖሎጂ ልማት እኩል መራመድ የሚችል በሰው ሰራሽ አስተውሎት ዘርፍም በሚገባት ልክ መጠቀም የምትችልበትን ሁኔታ ለመፍጠር ከወዲሁ መዘጋጀት አለባት። ያንን ለማድረግ ደግሞ በተለይ የትምህርት ስርዓቷ ላይ ብዙ መሰራት እንዳለበት ነው ያነሱት። በሰው ሰራሽ አስተውሎት ወይንም በአርቲፊሻል ኢንተለጀንስ ተወዳድሮ ማሸነፍ የሚችል የሰው ኃይልን መፍጠር ያስፈልጋል። ለዚህ ደግሞ ምቹ የሆነ መሰረትን ለመጣል የሚቻለው የትምህርት ዘርፍ ላይ መሰራት ሲችል ነው ብለዋል። እንግዲህ ሌላው ነጥብ በጠቅላይ ሚኒስትር ዶክተር አብይ የተነሳውና በኢትዮጵያ አዘጋጅነት በሚካሄደው በዚህ ጉባኤ ላይ ትኩረት የተሰጠው አጀንዳ በአፍሪካ ሀገራት መካከል ያለው የዲጂታል መሰረተ ልማትን የማስፋፋቱ አጀንዳ ነው። በዚህ ዘርፍ እንግዲህ ሀገራት ያላቸው የዲጂታል ሀብት በጋራ መጠቀም መቻላቸው ምን ያህል ጠቀሜታ ሊያመጣ እንደሚችል በመድረኩ ላይ አንስተው ይወያዩበታል ተብሎ ይጠበቃል። ሌላው ከዚሁ ጋር በተገናኘ የምናነሳው ጠቅላይ ሚኒስትሩን በንግግራቸው አጽንኦት ሰጥተው ያነሱት ሀሳብ የሰራሽ አስተውሎትና የቢግ ዳታ ልማትን በተመለከተ ነው። በአፍሪካ ሀገራት መካከል በተለይ የምግብ ዋስትናን ለማረጋገጥ ያስቀመጧቸው በተናጠል እንደ ሀገርም እንደ አህጉርም የተቀመጡ አጀንዳ 2063 ላይ ያሉትንም ጉዳዮች ለማሳካት የሚቻለው በጤና፣ በትምህርት፣ በቱሪዝም፣ በፋይናንስ የፍትሃዊ አቅርቦት ላይ ያለው ስራዎች ሊሳኩ የሚችሉት አሁን ዓለም እየተራመደበት በሚገኘውና በከፍተኛ ፍጥነት ውስጥ እየተራመደ ባለው የአርቲፊሻል ኢንተለጀንስ ወይንም የሰው ሰራሽ አስተውሎት ላይ የሚወሰዱ የፖሊሲ አማራጮች ትኩረት ሲሰጣቸው እንደሆነም በስፋት አንስተዋል። በዚህም ኢትዮጵያ እንግዲህ ልምዷን ማካፈል የምትችልበትንም አጋጣሚ በነገራችን ላይ ይዞ የመጣ ጉባኤ ነው። የዲጂታል ኢትዮጵያ 2025 ኢትዮጵያ በዚህ ዘርፍ ላይ በዋነኛነት እየተመራችበት የሚገኝ የፖሊሲዋ ነው። በዚህ ላይ እንግዲህ በትኩረት እየሰራች መሆኑንና እስካሁንም ድረስ የተገኙ ለውጦችም ጭምር በስፋት ይነሱበታል ተብሎ ይጠበቃል። ጠቅላይ ሚኒስትር ዶክተር አብይ በመልእክታቸው እንግዲህ በዛሬው የመክፈቻ ስነ ስርዓት ላይ ባነሱት መልእክታቸው በአፍሪካ ሀገራት መካከል ያለው የመሰረተ ልማት ትስስር መጠናከር እንዳለበትም ቀደም ሲል በዋናነት ካስቀመጧቸው 3 ነጥቦች መካከል አንዱ ነው። እንግዲህ ከዚሁ መልእክታቸው ጋር በቀጥታ የሚገናኘውና በኢትዮጵያ አዘጋጅነት የሚካሄደው ጉባኤ ላይም ትኩረት የተሰጠው ጉዳይ የአፍሪካ የነጻ የንግድ ቀጠናን የማጠናከሩ ጉዳይ ነው። በአፍሪካ ሀገራት መካከል ያለው የንግድ ትስስር አሁን ካለበት በጣም በእጅጉ መጠናከር እንደሚችልና አቅምም እንዳለው ጭምር አንስተዋል። ይህንን ለማድረግ ደግሞ የዲጂታል ዘርፉ ላይ መሰራቱ ብዙ ነገሮችን እንደሚያቀል ነው በመልእክታቸው ያስተላለፉት። በዚህ በ37ኛው የአፍሪካ ሕብረት የጉባኤ መክፈቻ መልእክታቸው ላይ እንግዲህ ጠቅላይ ሚኒስትር ዶክተር አብይ አህመድ በዋነኛነት ባስተላለፏቸው እነዚህ ሁለት መልእክቶቻቸው ማለትም የዲጂታል ትራንስፎርሜሽን አስፈላጊነትና የምግብ ዋስትና ወይንም የአፍሪካን የምግብ ሉዓላዊነት የማረጋገጡ ሁለት ዋና ዋና አጀንዳዎች ዛሬና ነገ በሚካሄዱት የኢትዮጵያ በመሪ አጀንዳ ቀራጭነት ባዘጋጀቻቸው በሁለት ጉባኤዎች ላይ መሰረታዊ ትኩረት አግኝተው የሚካሄዱ ይሆናል ማለት ነው። መድረኮቹ እንደ አፍሪካ ሕብረት ዋና መቀመጫነቷ ኢትዮጵያ በተለይ ዘንድሮ ለየት ባለ መልኩ የተዘጋጀችበትን በመሆኑ መገናኛ ብዙሃንም ለነዚህ ጉባኤዎች ሰፋ ያለ ትኩረትን በመስጠት እንደዚሁም በዚህ ላይ የሚሳተፉ ባለሙያዎችም ልምዳቸውን እንዲያካፍሉ በማድረግ በኩል ሰፊ ሚና አላቸውና በተለይም ደግሞ ከሌሎች የአፍሪካ ሚዲያዎችም ጋር እንደዚሁ በመተባበር የሌሎችንም ሀገራት ልምድ ለመቅሰም ትልቅ አጋጣሚ የሚፈጥር በመሆኑ በዚሁ አግባብ መጠቀም እንደሚያስፈልግ ለማንሳት እወዳለሁ። በዚህ በ37ኛው የህብረቱ የመሪዎች ጉባኤ ላይ እንግዲህ ሌሎችም በርከት ያሉ መልእክቶች ተላልፈውበታል። ከዛም ባሻገር የህብረቱ የወቅቱ ፕሬዝዳንት ከኮሞሮስ ወደ ሞሪታኒያ በማስረከብም የመደበኛ የሆነው የህብረቱ የጉባኤ የመክፈቻ ስነ ስርዓት በዛው አግባብ ተጠናቋል። እንግዲህ ከጉባኤው አጀንዳ ጋር የተገናኙ ምክክሮችም በዝግ የሚቀጥሉ ይሆናል። እንደ ሀገር ደግሞ ኢትዮጵያ ብሔራዊ ጥቅሞቿን የሚያስከብሩ የሁለትዮሽ ምክክሮችም እንደዚሁ ጎን ለጎን መካሄዳቸው የሚቀጥል ይሆናል ማለት ነው። ከመንግስት ኮሚኒኬሽን አገልግሎት በኩል ወቅታዊ መረጃዎችን እኛም አለፍ እያለን ለእናንተ ማድረሳችንን እንቀጥላለን። ለአሁን ያስኳቸው መረጃዎች እነዚህ ናቸው። አመሰግናለሁ።
ሰላም ጤና ይስጥልን። እንዴት ዋላችሁ? የኔ ቅዳሜያችን ተጀመረ። በለተ ቅዳሜ የሚተላለፍላችሁ ከአዲስ ዋልታ ቴሌቪዥን የሚተላለፈው